part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. That's right, longtime listeners. You heard that right. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. Again, I will explain it all right after I introduce my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Chad.
So listen, for people who have been listening to the show for a long time, they know that we were part of Colin Cowherd's Volume Network from the day the Volume launched a few years ago. And they know that I do a Sharper Square segment every week during the NFL season with Colin. That is going to continue. We have had a long, wonderful relationship with the Volume. We went off it last year for a variety of silly business reasons, having nothing to do with our love and affection for the Volume team. And the good news is we got to come back this year, which is fantastic. So we're on the Volume Podcast Network. If you listen on a regular basis and you're subscribing to the favorites, nothing changes. If you're hearing us through the Volume, fantastic. Listen to us through the Volume. You're also welcome to subscribe to the Favorites podcast. For those who are new to the show, I am Chad Millman. I am Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. We are a media business that focuses entirely on serving the needs of sports bettors. Our greatest season is during the NFL. For the next 6 weeks, Simon Hunter, who is a professional bettor, who has been my co-host on this show for the past several years, it has made it the #1 sports betting podcast in America. Once football season starts, for the next 6 weeks, Simon and I are going to break down every division in the NFL. We're talking about sides. We're talking about win totals. We're talking about division odds. We're talking about Super Bowl odds. We're talking about why we like the teams we like, our expectations for these teams for the year, where the market has it right, where the market has it wrong, what we think the advantages are, where we think you should stay away. During the season, the format for the show has always been on Tuesdays, Simon and I break down the entire slate, start talking about our leans. On Thursday, we nail our 5 favorite picks that we will put into our free-to-play $100,000 pick'em contest that everybody can enter. Last year, we had 12,000 people sign up for this contest. Everybody gets to compete against me and Simon. We put our 5 favorite picks into the contest. And then Sunday nights, after the late afternoon games end, but before the Sunday night football game begins, we break down what has gone on during the day, our heartbreaks, our triumphs. We are in it with all of you throughout the entire season. It's a fabulous season. And for our regular listeners, guess what? We did it. We have reached division preview season. I am joined today by Simon here in my home in Connecticut. Sadly, none of the tech was working. And while we were face-to-face a mere moments ago, Simon is now locked in our guest bedroom, where I'm going to hold him hostage for the rest of the seasons. Over the course of the upcoming previews, we will be joined by some big guests. This week, just me and Simon, solo. First up, we are discussing the AFC South. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they put out the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Also, please, 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 our very popular college sports betting brand, BBOC, has launched its very own YouTube channel. Get early access to BBOC coverage like our college football conference betting previews, plus live shows, exclusive content. Subscribe now for free by clicking in this episode description. That channel has launched. All right, Simon, enough with the prelims. Last season, the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud were the surprise team, the surprise player of all the NFL season. The Jags were the team everybody was banking on. They were 8-3. Trevor Lawrence gets injured. They crater. The Texans come on strong. They take the division. CJ Stroud is rookie of the year for offense. Will Anderson is DPOY, defensive player of the year. All of a sudden, everyone freaking loves the Texans. When we set this up, some of the things that I just want people to know, and I'm going to be done talking after this. Some of the most important things from a betting perspective, and I know Simon will tell you this, looking at the offensive line and the defensive line. When he is thinking about betting, he's going inside out. So we will talk about the rankings for offensive and defensive line for every team that we talk about, because that's something that gets ignored, but it's paramount for how we look at these teams. Simon, the Texans, strength of schedule, 7th hardest. The way we look at strength of schedule, the teams that this team is playing, the total amount of their wins based on season win total projections for 2024. O-line rank, 22nd. Laramie Tunsil is amazing. 47 sacks allowed, 10th most in the league. D-line, 10th. Feels a little low to me because this edge is stacked. Will Anderson, we talked about. He edged out Jalen Carter right at the end of the year for Rookie of the Year. They signed Danielle Hunter from Minnesota. He had 16.5 sacks last season. Let's see here, Simon. Houston is 16-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 105 to win the division, 9.5 wins. Let's roll, brother. What are you saying about the Texans?
Yeah, Texans are a team, and me and Chad talked about a couple months ago, and that I wanted to fade them, but they've nailed the offseason every way you can imagine. They've attacked a bunch of key positions. They've added guys who we view as big deals. Like, I mean, Diggs, you can say what you want. Diggs did tail off for that team last year. He's in a 1-year contract deal right now for himself. They literally let him out of his contract, give him a 1-year deal. I mean, Houston, they're doing all they can to maximize this rookie deal. And little did they know that in year 2 of that rookie deal, they would be like, okay, we can go all in on this. This is the guy. This is the kid. Like, it usually takes a year or two to figure that out. They knew after 1 year, just because, I mean, I don't have CJ's numbers in front of me, but I'm almost positive he was 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I mean, a lot of people ask us about that, Chad. They're like, why do you have him so much higher above your view of Jordan Love? Jordan Love got to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years and then take over an offense. None of that for CJ. CJ was in college last year, then thrown to the Wolves. And Chad just said he won this division. So, perspective wise, will I be invested in this team? Not really. Like, I'm not going to bet them divisional odds wise. I just don't love the value there for a team that people are forgetting. The last game of the year, they needed to beat Minshew to win the division and make the playoffs here. That wasn't like they dominated them. They won in the fourth quarter at the very end of the game. Like, it's a team that is really good. They have improved. Chad's going to talk about their offensive line. It's tough to say what the deal is with the offensive line, because last year they had the most injured offensive line in all of football, and CJ still put up those numbers I just told you. He still only had 5 interceptions. Like, we've never seen anything like this in my entire life covering football. We've never seen a rookie do what CJ did last year. So I'll talk to professionals. They're banking on regression from CJ. I know some other guys are all in on his Super Bowl bets. They're all in on his MVP futures, because second year is a big jump. Like, if you're the guy, you don't regress second year. You usually take a big jump. I mean, Mahomes, his first year as a starter, he won MVP. The second year, Super Bowl champion. Like, we just see it time and time again. Joe Burrow, second year, made it to a Super Bowl. Like, we see usually these guys, the second year, they do take that step. So, personally, am I going to invest money fading CJ and this team, even though I should? No. Like, Chad's right. I don't like it. I don't trust the number either. 9.5 is a bizarre number where it's like, I really want to take that under. I don't know why it's not up to 10.5 yet with all the guys they've added, but this is what Vegas does. They're saying, do it again. That's what they're basically saying to people that want to bet Houston, want to bet CJ, say, prove you're not a fluke, because we think you are a fluke. That's why they're giving him this number right now. They're saying in this division, we don't think it's a slam dunk team like everyone's making them out to be. So, really interesting perspective about Vegas, where my perspective is this team, I could see them. I mean, we could all say it. We could see CJ playing Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. Like that's a ceiling for them. The floor is he isn't what he was last year. That was just totally fluke. The team does regress. They're an 8-9 team, a 9-8 team, which that's literally what Vegas is telling you, hanging this number at 9.5.
The most interesting thing here is the dynamics of the rookie contract and the Texans realizing, holy shit, we got something so special in this guy, which is why they go out and get Stephon Diggs, who has basically played himself out of two different franchises now, even though he's one of the most talented receivers in the NFL, right? Played himself out in Minnesota, played himself out of Buffalo to the point where they were barely using him at the end of the year when they were a team that felt like they were going on to the Super Bowl and that their window was right now, meaning last year. Then they got Danielle Hunter, who is just a monster. Like he has had an incredible 2 years. They
And
are
they gave him a
recognizing.
mercenary contract, Chad. I think they gave him like a 2 year and then
Yeah,
a
yeah,
ton of money. They're like,
yeah.
come here and
And
get
it's
this
like,
ring for us while we got this rookie contract.
and I love their theory. Prove
Yeah.
it. Every time we will pay you if you prove it. And by the way, we'll take the risk. You know what I mean? Like there is a very good chance both of these guys get monster deals in their next go around because they're on such short-term deals and can outperform them so easily. And the Texans will have to decide, are we going to pay? Are we not going to pay? Is someone else going to be in the market? I like the way they're thinking about constructing this team with CJ Stroud in his rookie deal, but 9.5 is a trap. Like I'm not going to invest in this team either way. Like 16-1 feels like the odds are
Too
too
low.
low,
Yeah, too
way
low.
too low at this point. Like they also, by the way, added Joe Mixon, which we didn't even say. But here's a great stat for those who don't know and are new to the show. Evan Abrams, crack researcher, runs Actions ESPN group. He's on the show with us every Tuesday, every Thursday with great stats. Has so many fans. Here's a true story. So many fans Evan has that when we've done our live shows, people have shown up with real jerseys, NFL jerseys, and asked Evan to sign those NFL jerseys with their favorite stats of their favorite team. Here's a stat from Evan Abrams. Biggest Super Bowl odds move to 20-1 or shorter year to year since 1977. 200-1 to last year to 14-1 this year. That is the third biggest move since 1977. The biggest, 300-1 was Dallas, 79-80. They moved from 300-1 to 8-1. And then in 90-91, Dallas moved from 250-1 to 20-1. By the way, none of those teams won the Super Bowl. So those are the stakes for the Texans right now. All of which to say, I'm not going to fade this team, but I'm not a buyer on this
Don't.
team.
Yeah.
Too many unknowns.
Don't bet. Like Chad just broke it down for you. Do not bet those Super Bowl odds. Like when you put into your mind that he could have a path where he needs to go through Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, then Mahomes, or Lamar. There's just too many guys there where it's like can't do it. Can't take him at 14-1 on those kind of odds against those kind of guys, right? Guys who you could say Lamar has improved it, but I mean, there's no doubt Joe Burrow has proven it. No doubt, obviously Mahomes has proven it. I mean, even Josh Allen, his only kryptonite is Mahomes. So to me, it's too much love for the new guy to the party, right? It's just people like the new toy, so that's why they're getting all the love. But please don't bet these odds. They've moved too much.
And also, and let's transition to the next team here because we didn't mention in that who you just mentioned, the quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, who until recently was the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. And last year was supposed to be the year that he took that next step with Doug Peterson, and he didn't, right? But remember, and this is what gets forgotten, and this is why betting is so interesting. It's all about recency bias. Don't forget, the Jacksonville Jaguars were 8-3. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. This team craters, and the Texans go on to win the division. if this team doesn't get hurt, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt, we're having different conversations. This is why the challenge for me is betting on the Texans, because the Jaguars could be the team that they were supposed to be throughout the entire year last year.
Yeah, we like the Jags. Me and Chad have a special place in our heart with them because they hit a 10-1 divisional bet for us 2 years ago. And we obviously like Doug Peterson. This is the way the team is built as well. Like Chad nailed it. If Trevor didn't get hurt and they didn't just totally tank into the season, I think they won 2 games in the final 10 weeks.
Yeah.
You just those things aren't predictable, right? That's why we say all the time we love this game because it's just random things like that happen, right? It's a battle of nutrition. Can you last, right? Can your body hold up? And my big issue right now, the Jaguars, is the defensive side. Like to me, I have them. Even with the guys Tennessee's added, I probably have them rated fourth team right now in this division for defensive side. Now, offensively, I don't think losing Calvin Ridley that big of a deal. I just don't know how well he fit into their system. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen in social media, people have made clips of his drops, which are absolutely brutal. Most other guys in the professional league are catching those. So Christian Kirk, you assume last year when he went out, another guy that Trevor Lawrence is a big safety blanket. It affected him going forward once Christian Kirk got hurt. We assume he'll be healthy back in his position. I mean, he's had a good camp so far. So they're another team that I've invested a small amount into their over total. I haven't touched their Super Bowl odds, Chad. Once again, we're talking about the AFC. It's just there's a guy up top there that just it kind of warrants not me investing long term in some of these teams, especially a Jaguars team, which the reason me and you I think as well really loved them last year was Trevor Lawrence had an incredible comeback against Herbert, right? That comeback in the
In the
playoffs, I mean,
playoffs the year before.
yeah, was incredible. Like people might not remember, but they were down, I believe, 20, 21 points, and he came all the way back and won that game. I think now we're starting to realize that might have said more about the Chargers and their last head coach they fired than it did so much about Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars team. So I'm not leaving them for dead. I still have them graded out above the Colts, who we're about to talk about as number 2 team in this division. But the price of their upside, there's other teams I'd rather bet in this division than them. So I've taken a little bit on their over. I've not bet them divisionally. I've not bet them future market for Super Bowl either. So I think Chad's being right about it, though. I might have a little bit of recency bias to it. I just don't think they've done enough defensively to give me faith that they can really stop 2 other quarterbacks I have a lot of faith in this division. So yeah, it's all once again, I think it's all gonna be put on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders, and we'll see if he can hold up. Right now, he held up 1 year, and the next year he did not. So it's gonna be interesting how this team performs this coming season.
Jags are 50-1 to win the Super Bowl.
Wow,
Right
I didn't know
now.
it got that low. They were
50 to 1.
40-1, so they've dropped.
Plus 275 to win the division. 8.5 is their season win total. So you've got a little bit of a taste on the
Just because
over.
I have them at 9-8. So again, it's
Yeah.
not enough of an edge to really make me load up on it, but I do have them at 9-8.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like we're going to talk about Indy, who I think is a fascinating team. And if you're looking to invest, that might be the more interesting sort of upside play. The Jags feel like they're priced exactly where they should be. Like
Yep.
they're middle of the road, prove it team right now. Right now, the bloom is off the rose because they weren't good enough last year. And to be honest, even last year, 8-3 was a struggle. Like they weren't playing great. Trevor Lawrence hadn't taken that next step that I think a lot of people thought he was going to take. So to go in on this team right now when all of a sudden we know the Texans are better doesn't feel like a really wise thing to do. Their strength of schedule is 19th, so it's kind of middle of the road. No advantage there. Their offensive line rank, according to Pro Football Focus, who we use for their rankings. I love the Pro Football Focus offensive and defensive line rankings and their player grades, and we'll talk a lot about those in the shows in the coming weeks. All we can say about their offensive line, a lot of former first round picks who can't keep Trevor Lawrence healthy. They are a middling, underperforming group that has not done its job. And you mentioned the defense, right? Like everyone knows about now known as Josh Harris Allen, who just signed a massive new contract, 17 and a half sacks last year. They know about Trayvon Walker, who was the number 1 overall pick taken 2 years ago, ahead of Aiden Hutchinson.
And we
And he
said at the
did get
time that was a mistake.
At the time, it felt like a mistake. I
Yeah.
think it still feels like a mistake. I think like Trayvon Walker, he got to 11 sacks last year, but it was a very quiet 11 sacks, right? Like Aiden Hutchinson, you see Aiden Hutchinson in a game and you feel like he's making an impact regardless of the overall number. And like his numbers went down in the second half of last year. But that's also because he's being double and triple teamed and teams are running away from him. They're running bootlegs away from him. Quarterbacks know that he's coming, so they're getting the teams are game planning against Aiden Hutchinson. They aren't game planning against Trayvon Walker. They're game planning against Josh Harris Allen. So
Yeah.
if you're Trayvon Walker and you're getting single teamed and nobody is game planning against you, you should get 11 sacks. Like you are underperforming to the next level if you're not getting 11 sacks. They did get some help with Eric Armstead from the Niners, who's great. But their D line rank, it's a pretty shallow defensive line. So I understand your concerns about the defense.
Yeah, and they have a top 5 corner as well, but it's just they have a bunch of pieces that are still just missing on that defense. That's their issue.
Uh, and look, you and I love Doug Peterson, right? Like what Doug Peterson did with the Eagles and Nick Foles and Philly and getting him to the Super Bowl and then winning the Super Bowl. It was one of the biggest bets you've ever won in your life. It was a huge bet the first year that Action had launched that we all talked about that got us a ton of credibility and audience. So we were super excited about it. We always got a soft spot for Doug Peterson, but we kind of expected him to have done more with Trevor Lawrence at this point.
I agree.
Indianapolis Colts, Shane Steichen worked some miracles last year. This team, 65 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 310 to win the division. Season win total, 8.5. We had Anthony Richardson last year for 4 games. So now we got to ask ourselves. We loved Anthony Richardson as a rookie. I think he, in those 4 games, showed a winner's mentality. We loved what he was doing, but also showed that he's fragile because he was hurt frequently until he was out for the season. And he was running a lot and playing physical in the NFL, which is a recipe for a very short career.
Yeah, but I love it. I want to if I'm gonna go big in the future market of some of the team I'm gonna hit. It's just their upside is so tremendous if this kid can be what we all think he can be, which is Cam Newton 2.0, right? A great athlete with an incredible arm that, yes, is he going to miss some really easy throws right across the middle, sail him over people's heads just like Cam Newton? I do think he will. It's just part of the game with guys like this who are these big athletes that are just raw. I mean, last year, Chad talked about it. The kid played 1 year at Florida, got drafted at 20 years old. So when he was a starter last year, I don't know if he had turned 21 or he still was 20, but he was just so young. And they made the offense so simple. That's why the people are so in love with this guy because it wasn't just the design runs that were so impressive. It was the design plays to get him outside the pocket, him on the move. He's actually really accurate on the move outside the pocket. Like it's a strength of his. We already know he has an incredible deep ball, but now we're mixing in that. To me, their offensive line is one of the best units they've had in I don't know since Peyton Manning. So I know Jeff Saturday retired 12, 13 years ago. It feels like that was the last time they had this type of rating to me on their offensive line. Okay, now we know we don't have a Jonathan Taylor holdout either to deal with the whole offseason. He is in camp day one, ready to go. You might not remember it, but he was a top 3, top 4 running back in football. Big deal. Now you have a number 1 outside, Pittman. That's a big deal. Have a guy outside. They have a couple guys upcoming wide receivers that are really talented as well. You put that all together, that again, we talk about the year 2 step. That's what I'm banking on here. Anthony Richardson, I'm betting on him to make that year 2 jump. If he doesn't, me and Chad will never view him the same, right? We won't next year. I won't be here trying to make excuses for him blowing smoke up your ass. It's just like, no, people are right. Chad said it. The guy can't take hits. Last year, he only gave us 8 games. I'm not putting more money on this kid the following year because last year I view as a fluky injury. Like, guys are going to get hit, right? I mean, that's just part of the deal, whether you're a runner or not. Even the play he got injured on, it truly wasn't as if he was like going like looking for the contact, right? I just think he fell wrong into the guy and hit his shoulder wrong, and that was a season. Now people are worried because he's only been having some days where he's only throwing 5 to 6 passes in certain practices, and they're giving him rest days. I think it's just because it's July, guys. Like, I just think they're going to take it nice and easy with their prized possession. Even, Chad talked about Shane Steichen, guy I haven't even talked about yet. I have so much respect for this guy's head coach. Like, if you just watch what he did with that offense last year, you go to the year before when he almost got hurt and MVP. This guy is it, right? When the Eagles lost him, I didn't realize how big of a deal he was for their success until I did watch the Colts' offense, where it's like they have a ton of motion, they have a ton of just getting people off balance, especially defenses. Now you're mixing in. He did this with Minshew, right? Now you bring in one of the best athletes I can recall in the NFL. It's just the sky's the limit for this team. So yeah, 65-1. I know I just talked about not really wanting to bet, the Jaguars at 50-1. That's what I think this team should be closer to. I think they should be 50-1, 45-1. Again, their win totals are the same. I think it's 8.5 for both these teams. I much rather invest in this upside of this team where I do trust our offensive line. I do have a bunch of guys with good grades on their defensive line that, yeah, they're no name. Like, I mean, I think they have DeForest Buckner on the line, who people know from his days on the 49ers, and he is really solid. But across the board, they have a lot of guys they can rotate in. That defensive tackles are good. They're just a team that even last year, Houston, they played them really hard, especially defensively. So, as you know, if you're a fan of the show, week 1, me and Chad have bet the Colts at home against Houston. That really sets the tone for this season. That's the kind of game where Chad just said their division odds are plus 310. If they win that game, what do you think, Chad? Plus 200 division odds for the Colts team just because of one game. So that's the kind of team why I want to invest in them now.
Yes, I was going to say, for me in this division, this is the team you got to pinpoint, right? And to me, it's not the Super Bowl odds, and it's not necessarily their season win total. It's the plus 310. I think that's where the most value is. And if you're going to invest your money now and have to wait until the end of the season for a payout, I'd rather take a little bit more of a flyer on the plus 310. Divisions change every year. Like, whatever we thought happened, whatever happened last year is not what we think is going to happen this year. There is a stat Evan Abrams has that we're going to talk about in every single division preview, which is, and it doesn't apply to the Colts this year, in 19 of the past 21 seasons, 91% of the time, an NFL team has gone from worst to first in its division. It did happen last year. The Texans went from worst to first in their division. They nailed their draft. They nailed their head coaching pick. They had some great luck with Anthony Richardson going down, with Trevor Lawrence going down, Tennessee being in a down year where everything was cratering. So it does happen. We're going to talk about that on a regular basis in these previews. To back up Simon here, offensive line rank for the Colts, 3. Okay? Their offensive tackle duo is arguably the best in the league. Left tackle is Bernard Raymond. Right tackle, Braden Smith. Each finished amongst the 7th highest graded offensive tackles in 2023. Ryan Kelly, highest graded center in pass protection, according to Pro Football Focus. All 5 starting linemen return for 2024. Didn't even mention Quentin Nelson. He still grades out as a top 15 guard. So you've got a top 3 offensive line protecting Anthony Richardson, also opening holes for Jonathan Taylor, who, like you said, will be playing healthy and playing the full season because he's back from his contract negotiations. He won't be holding out. Am I stroking out right now? I can't even put together a sentence.
You're making me nervous. I'm about to come check on you.
Yeah, seriously. Meanwhile, their defensive line is 7th graded in the NFL. So yeah.
It's all there. Like what Chad's giving you right now, it's all there. And then you add in top that we have such high respect for their head coach. It's like these are the kind of teams we love and to invest in.
Talked about Shane Steichen, Simon. Yeah. Like, we love this guy.
Love it.
We love him so much because we realized halfway through the Eagles season how much of a genius he was and what he was doing with that team. Because they definitely
picked the wrong guy. Yeah.
And like what he did with Anthony Richardson to start the season, and then what he was able to do with Gardner Minshew throughout the rest of the year.
Adjust on the fly. adjusting on the fly. Totally
Amazing.
opposite guys. Yeah.
So yeah, we love this team. Love it. Love it. If you haven't understood it, we're in on the Colts at plus 310 to win their division. Meanwhile, Tennessee. Poor Tennessee. Like this team, boy, we used to love Mike Vrabel. He was our guy, one of the coaches who was better as an underdog than anybody else the past 20 years, only Mike Tomlin better. Automatic bet when he was an underdog. Last year was a tough year. So now he's out. Uh, Brian Callahan, former offensive coordinator for the Bengals, is in. Will Levis is the quarterback. Basically knew everything, right? Derrick Henry is out. Tennessee is 150 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, 10 to 1 plus 1,000 to win the division. Season win total is 4.5. Not a lot to write home around here. Their offensive line is 30th. Here's the thing I would say that I really like about their offensive line. They've invested in it. Peter Skoronski, the offensive lineman from Northwestern last year, J.C. Latham, the offensive lineman from Alabama this year, back-to-back first-round picks. Here's the most important thing, I think, and we'll get to the defensive line after you. I want you to comment on this. Brian Callahan's father is Bill Callahan. For those who don't know, Bill Callahan, who coached the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Super Bowl against John Gruden and the Raiders in like 2003. Coached the Raiders to the Super Bowl against John Gruden and the Bucs in 2003. Is known as the best offensive line coach in the NFL. So now he is with his son, coaching a new offensive line, coaching a young offensive line. This is 30th to me with a bullet, and it will be interesting to see how well this team does as the season goes on.
Yeah, and we just went from being so positive with the Colts to now it's like I hate to do it to you, Tennessee. I'm just gonna be shitting on you. All of it, even the stuff I'm reading in camp, I just don't see how it's gonna work out with Will Levis. And it's funny where we talked last year about how this last year's draft was going to shape this division for the next 10 years. Little did we know that CJ was going to be the one, right? That was going to be, the future, right? Taking over this division so fast. And I said Anthony Richardson, if he hits, he's going to be the guy in this division. If Will Levis hits for Tennessee, he could be this guy in the division. And, we did see flashes, right? That Miami game, one of our bigger bets last year was the Bills to come back and win this division. And we needed a miracle from Will Levis to kind of set those things in motion and come and beat that Miami team. I think he scored 14 points in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
To an incredible comeback. But that's the issue. He is so bad and inconsistent. The guy, he could throw these incredible deep passes to Hopkins, but for a 3rd and 5, you're dead. I mean, he's not picking you up those 5 yards. It doesn't matter what the plays draw up last year. He would get happy feet. Like Jared talked about, they had a bad offensive line. They're trying to improve it, but all of it lines up for me to bet this team to have the worst record in football. Like they fit the perfect description of a team that I don't really have trust or faith in the coach yet, and I don't really trust at all the quarterback. And the things I read from the beat writers, it doesn't sound like he's improved. He sounds like he's inconsistent still in these practices, and that's the fear. I mean, I try not to take too much away from OTAs, right? Because they're working on stuff then. But stuff I read, it's like, no, he's still inconsistent. He's still against air is overthrowing guys or underthrowing guys. That's a big issue when the NFL, you have to be perfect. Like you just do, because that's what everyone else is aiming for. Like these other guys that are inconsistent, they eventually fade away. They eventually turn to a Ryan Tannehill. It's like maybe we can, have such a good team we can get by and get us there. That's not this team here in Tennessee, right? They've lost a lot of key positions. So the fact that Vrabel left as well, it's just at plus 800, plus 900 for them to have the worst record. Like they're on my list right now. I mean, we're going to get to these other teams on my list, but they're one of the 3 I've kind of zeroed in on. It's like I could easily see this team tanking just because their division's so good. And if Will Levis isn't that guy, why wouldn't they want to get up and get a new guy with a new head coach who they just brought in, right? So to me, it's our make or break year for Will Levis. Like they're going to be quick to move on. We see the NFL is different now, right? Teams are quick to move on because the rookie contract is the key for so many of these teams. So even if he did all right, we could see another scenario where it's like Justin Fields, where it's like, he wasn't the worst team, the worst quarterback in the league, but the team had an opportunity to go in a different direction, so they took that. And I feel like Tennessee will go the same way, where it's Will Levis was a second round pick, and there's a bunch of reasons he went in that second round, and we're kind of seeing it. So, yeah, I know it's tough to hear Tennessee, but you guys being 150-1, that's right for your Super Bowl odds. 4.5. That sounds right to me. You guys are in a tough division now. Like we just talked about it. So it's all there for them to be possibly the worst team in football, but it's also all there. Chad talked about your little building blocks, bringing in the best offensive line of coach, drafting offensive line players, bringing in Calvin Ridley to be a weapon on the outside of Hopkins on the other side. So there are pieces there to make, the progress happen. I'm not seeing it or reading it right now. So I just have to go off what I'm reading off these beat writers. And that's just that Will Levis has not showed up what they expected him to be.
Defensive line ranking is 21st. Standout there is Jeffrey Simmons, who was the standout every year. I feel like he's one of those guys who, in years past, when we talked about Tennessee, we loved. He'd be a guy who would make us be more comfortable betting on Tennessee in sort of an underdog position because he didn't get enough credit. He's just got nothing around him right now to really make an impact for a team. We just don't think they have the talent. I see more about who Will Levis is dating. There was just a story this morning in the New York Post that Will Levis is potentially dating a former bachelorette. Then I hear anything about Will Levis and his performance during the offseason, or the confidence the Titans have in him, or is he the next great quarterback? And you're not wrong. Like Justin Fields, Bears moved off him quickly. Trey Lance, Niners dropped him as soon as Brock Purdy was throwing passes that were accurate, right? They knew,
They're just not that team that, people aren't talking about them, right? And like that's kind of where we're at with this team.
Sad. They used to be a team we loved. This year, the team we love from this division, the Indianapolis Colts, plus 310. We might want to bet the Tennessee Titans, plus 800, plus 900, to have the worst record in the NFL. A little bit of a taste on the Jags and their over. Other than that, we're pretty much staying away from everything. So to recap again quickly, Colts plus 310, Titans, worst record in the league, Jags over. In that order, by the way, those are the bets that we like the most from the AFC South. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Simon and I are back with our next episode of the Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, to talk NFC South. Download us from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.